keep it muted. So this is also for the convenience of the interpreters and clarity for all. So the multiple persons speaking simultaneously will make it difficult for the interpreters. So now we'll move on to the session. Once again, good evening everyone. On behalf of HRF, I welcome you all for this 16 days campaign session. Today, the topic of the session is Children at Crossroads. Yes, yeah, Children at Crossroads. Today, the entire session is co-organized by Madras School of Social Work, Chennai, Banyan Academy of Leadership in Mental Health, Chennai, Tata Institute of Social Science, Mumbai, Bharatidasan University, Trichy. So today, we have the entire session will be moderated by Nikayata, moderator from University of Hyderabad. So over to Nikayata. Welcome, Nikayata. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarvanan. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the session. Today's session is titled Children at Crossroads. The session is a part of the 16 days of activism against gender violence and is hosted by HRF. I am Niketa, and I will be moderating today's session. It's a pleasure to introduce the speaker for today, Kamal Gaur. Kamal Gaur is the Deputy Director of Education at Save the Children. Kamal has nearly 22 years of experience in the development sector. She has worked with the World Bank, European Union, DFID, and JBIC. Her projects include, but are not limited to, resource mobilization, monitoring, research, and evaluation for the development sector. She is well versed with rural India and has worked with communities and other rural institutions from village to state level. She has been involved with the District Primary Education Program, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, Higher Education Program, Yamuna Action Plan, and Agri-Business Development Program. We are very glad to have you join us today. We are looking forward to the session. Our live audience is requested to post their questions in the Zoom chat box. Over to you, Kamal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nikita, and what a pleasure to be here. And I think the most interesting part for me is that, to carry on certain activity for such a long period of time and still sustaining interest of people in the discussion on violence. And I think it's so amazing that you guys have been able to do it for 16 days, and I think it ends on 10th. So I think congratulations from my side. At the onset, congratulations that for having that interest and showing the interest in this particular theme, first of all, and carrying it forward for so many years. So congratulations to all the organizers and people who are present for their sustained interest, because that's generally not happens. In development sector, sustenance of interest is a major issue. But to begin with, I mean, I'm not a gender expert, first of all. I have only worked in the area of education. But yes, when we talk about all boys and girls, then yes, um, um, I work. I have worked with both boys and girls, and even in Save the Children, we don't talk about girls separately and boys separately. We work with we say something like our breakthrough in education, that children's right to basic education. All boys and girls have the right to basic education, good quality basic education. So. Um, I when I talk about gender, so I keep and I think that's the view also, both boys and girls. I would like to also draw, um, everybody's attention to the point that when we talk about children, and that too in crossroad, we ignore the area of education. We limit, our vision gets limited to the physical aspect of it, very little about the psychosocial aspect. But yes, what we see, so what is going in the head, that's not counted as that people don't want to act on that. They don't want to run programs or discuss what happens here, how does that violence damages child's thinking. And also, when we talk about children, we don't even count 0 to 6 years old because they don't have voice. S- um, when young adults and adults, when they start voicing their opinion, to some extent, we do talk about violence against them in terms of child marriage, physical abuse, sexual abuse. Um, and also to tell you, when we talk about children, we also don't talk about children who are like most marginalized. When I say most marginalized, I would mean children who live on border areas. I would say children right now during pandemic, children who were migrating with their parents, children who are in street situation, children who are in tribal areas. We don't, I mean, that's, these are the most marginalized children. We don't even talk about, we don't hear, first of all, we don't hear them in news. They don't make noise sense, they make don't make news sense, so we don't hear much about them. um, yes, off and on. And uh, if you look at the certain challenges, which I think everybody must be knowing, is about the data. Where is the reporting? Where are the numbers? What we hear is about one off case story, which gets covered in the newspaper, and suddenly there is a furor around it or a noise around it. But sources of data, research, on I mean, we do have a few of these researches for children between 0 to 12 years old, done by UNICEF, Save the Children, um, around this. But yes, but with very very smaller kind of aspects of violence. So we so for me, just denial of any right is a violence for a child. And when we work with children, since Save the Children is a child rights based organization, when we work with children, we also talk about psychosocial care. We also talk about violence, which is like what happens in schools, what happens in Anganwadis. Global data says that 64% of the violence with children happens in South Asia. And when we talk about data, certainly with limited reporting, we don't see that 64% um, you know in India, or that size in India, because we don't count it at times as violence. For when we work in schools, because what happens in school, it has a reflection on the child's development and in later stages. Say for example, when we talk about violence, we talk about you know um, pinching. We also talk about, say, slapping. I mean, it's so normal in these areas, most marginalized or rural areas, or even peri-urban areas, where where parents don't count them as violence. So pinching, slapping, twisting of ears, beating, it's normal. Verbal abuse, that kind of discrimination, um, criticizing a child, blaming a child, um, sometimes child's witness what happens at home. That is that's some sort of an abuse, where a child just witnesses violence. What kind of impact? So there's mocking, when a child is not able to perform as per her or his class, then just mocking a child, making certain remarks which can last on child for lifelong. Say for example, when I was growing up, I studied in a school where we had an opportunity to have a counselor. Hmm? I'm talking about how many years back? Somewhere around, I passed out my 12th grade in 1986. So when so at that point of time, we had counselors in school, and one counselor just said that Kamal doesn't have an aptitude for maths. And it was when I was in class 8th. And suddenly, when somebody comments on the aptitude part, first of all, child is not able to understand what does a person mean by aptitude. But it has left. I mean, till date, I remember that statement made by one of the counselors. So I think this lasts. So any impression or any statement by any child, by parent, or your sibling, or your classmate, or your parent, it leaves a mark. You know, you don't uh, put it in forefront, but it leaves a mark, and it develops certain sort of inferiority complex also. I mean, after that I felt that, I'm not good in maths. I can't do maths. Somehow I did it till 12th, but that feeling lasted. And it took, I think when I did my master's and I scored really well in statistics. And at that point of time, one was able to slightly overcome that phobia. So this is also a kind of violence. Currently, what you see, the kind of deprivation children are going through, it's a violence. They don't have access to education in current pandemic situation. They don't have whatever access they have, even if they have computers or laptops at home. But what about the internet connection? They have resource centers in community, but what about the internet connection? um, what about who gets preference, girls or boy? Um if a parent has one phone and there are two children, boy and a girl, who will get the preference? It's all about that. So this is also one kind of violence which a child is going through. I would like to also or address um, the issue of um, domestic violence which children have gone through during this pandemic situation when they were at home. What happened? What happened was that the very fact they couldn't meet their friends, the very fact they couldn't go out and play, the very fact there was domestic violence which happened in, I mean, again, there's no reporting, but I have some reporting from Kenya, in a county where you have somewhere around lakh and a half people. There were 3,500 girls who were pregnant during uh, lockdown period in Kenya. I'm not saying in India that that situation will happen, but I'm just trying to um, share the fact that kind of violence which can happen and which happened with children, especially with girls when they were at home. I will give you an example, I will work. I will also share the kind of solution which one can look at. But just now, I'll just highlight different areas. What had happened? So we work in KGBVs in India, and one of the KGBV girls. I hope people know what is KGBV. Okay. For people who don't know KGBV, these are Kasturba Gandhi Balika Vidyalayas. These are residential schools for children, and now the classes are from 6th to 10th. So they stay in residential schools, KGBVs. From class 6, they take admission in class 6th, and the schools are from 6th grade to 10th grade. So one of the girls, when we were trying to find out um, what is happening with children at home, and we name them as pandemic diaries. So pandemic diaries of children. So I'll just pick up one example of a girl, what she said. She said, um, when I was in KGBV, I was very safe, very secure. School kept a tab on who comes in and who goes out. But during this situation, um, we are at home. We are with everyone. I don't have a big home. I stay in one um, room kind of a place, and with my other siblings. And during pandemic, when it was in peak, my mother my mother sent me out for all sorts of shopping and buying goods, and she never told my brother. What would you call that? What would you call that? I mean, it doesn't fit into the uh, normal nomenclature of violence. But um I think, um I'm not saying girls are not supposed to go out, but if you look at it, mother never asked her son, and this is documented. I'm not saying it's from cooked up kind of a story. It's very well documented. We have a video of it. So these kind of um, examples are many. Another example, um, denial, as I said, deprivation and denial of certain things. During pandemic, what had happened was, um, a girl, and it's a story of many girls. They couldn't find um, sanitary napkin, and you know uh, in our project areas, a lady teacher, or we said, we what we call academic support fellow, had to go. So this girl reported to their didi and said, "Didi, I'm not able to find a sanitary napkin. What do I do?" And you talk about menstrual hygiene too. And I don't have any such thing. What should I do? So that didi had to travel for almost 25 kilometers to find sanitary napkins for that girl. And as a result of it, I mean, you understand the kind of you know process she must have, kind of situation she must have gone through, that she reached out to her didi at the end, somebody who was outside family. She had to reach out to somebody. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of you know um, strength to reach out to somebody and say that, okay, I need sanitary pads. Such a basic need, such a basic need. And somebody has to go to almost 25 kilometers. So what had happened is, during pandemic, this kind of deprivation, very sad, very sad. Because for me, you know what happens in school and what happens outside, even at home, that makes a lot of difference in child's life. So I talked about 0 to 6 years old, which don't make noise, news or noise sense. They don't make voting sense. Um, Parents just feel happy that they are with us, assuming, just being with us, they are safe and secure. I'm around it. I would also narrate certain examples of very different examples of violence with children, um, in and that got reported in newspaper also. That one child who was um, mentally challenged. Mother used to, I mean, in one of the peri-urban areas of Delhi, mother used to go out and work and would tie children with the cot while she is out for work. There are incidences when parents have to go out for work, they don't have good quality child care, or provisioning for child care, full time kind of a child care, and they have to leave their children, and 20-25 children with one person. They live, they are physically close to each other, they are they are under control of one person, and one can assume that in many situations, what can happen to these children. I don't want to go into the details, but yes, that's how children are managed. um, I told you about the physically challenged child. I told you about the children who are with one of the elders or youngsters, 20 25 children. That's how people manage. Where you must have seen another story on the news in TV channels about how girls were abused by minors, mine owners, um, and they were in the state of UP, when and how they were rushing to to get some money, and they were abused. So there are these different kinds of, so physical aspect done by both parents and teachers, caretakers, caregivers. um, 0 to 6, they don't make any sense, so no data, no idea about kind of abuse or violence that happens with them. um, then where I work, 6 to 14 years old, rarely reported when they are in school situation. And I don't know, because when we refer to NHFS for data, and it talks about that 30% of the women in India in the age group of 15 to 49 have experienced some sort of violence, and 6% have faced sexual violence. I don't know. This is the data which is, when we all know, underreported, but sizable data. It's if you look, even if we take it as an indication of the trend, I think it's very, very sad. And when we are talking about you know psychosocial care for people who have undergone violence, we don't have system or structure in school, right? um, then, and also the kind of and I'm here taking children as both girls and boys, but when you look at the girls, I've seen schools where you find in peri-urban areas and rural areas, only girls sitting in government school. So once, when way back in 97, 98, first time when I saw this phenomena, and till now, till recently, you continue to see that phenomena. Then I mean, at that point of time, one didn't absorb or observe much. But when we look at it now, I mean, it's a violence. It's a some sort of discrimination that happens with girls. Boys are sent to those low cost, poor quality private school in the name of that they will learn English, and girls are sent to government schools. And this is very obvious if you go in your respective geographies in rural areas, you will find similar situation. Toilets, though, as part of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, the physical structure got created in school, but somehow people didn't consider that we may need um, water for toilets, and we may need water for drinking. And then in a school where you have 200 children, you see a tank which has the capacity of 500 liters. So normally what happens then, teachers, they lock their washrooms, say that we can't, how do we use it? So even if that kind of discrimination, deprivation exists, the measures which have been taken, they don't match, and they don't work towards any ending any sort of deprivation or violence against children. I have not even discussed the issue what happens in the areas where you have they are disturbed areas. I'm not even talking about those areas, what children go through. Schools don't open in the state of J&K. Schools don't open for more than 70 days in a year. And rest of the time, what child is seeing in and around him or her, it is a torture. Areas where you don't have light and their days are gloomy, children don't reading under, uh, what uh, really dark environment and surroundings. What kind of, so that I would consider that as deprivation and violence. What happens in in uh, in places where schools don't even open, anganwadis don't even open. They are there on paper, but the um, I don't know, they never open in very difficult areas, border areas, tribal areas. So we work in a geography where there were, in a block, there were 101 Anganwadis. I'm talking about a block. I hope all of you understands this unit, what is block district. Huh? So in a block, 101 Anganwadis, and out of which 12 were not opening. So when we intervened and we started working in that area, because it's not just structure, it's not just, we are not talking about just structure. What we are talking about is what happens around that structure. Children play, denial of their right to play, that's a violence. Um, um, Government provides for midday meals for children in schools and anganwadis, and if they are shut, it's not fault of government, but it is also fault of the people who are around that place, their school management committees or Anganwadi development committees, or the panchayats, or the now a new SEMC. So I don't know what is happening in that area. So it's the problem is multi-level in terms of with these children. um Very simple example I would give. um we work in the border areas of West Bengal, Orissa, Jharkhand, um and Bihar. Um, so there's something called source and something called destination. So parent the labor, migrant labor, they move from source to destination, and most of the situation, it's a destination is where you have employment sources. So for Bihar, Jharkhand, Orissa, the destination could be West Bengal, and I'm talking about children, parents who work in bricklines in that area, and it's a huge area in West Bengal. 24 Parganas, um, I'm talking about, and children move with their parents. So they are at destination for almost 9 months, and they are at source for 3 months. They get registered themselves for education at at their native places, but they move with their children to their destination. Um, who will take care of their education? Who will maintain continuity? Parents don't have resources. That's why they are moved to another location. So, like organization like ours, we work there to bridge the gap in the education system, and also to ensure the children are do not get involved in child labor. Okay, so that is also a kind of violence. So I am moving away from a very structured definition of violence by giving examples of different situation and incidences. So as a practitioner, and it's been almost 29 years since I'm in field and I've done only education. um, these kind of areas are unfolding. In 2019, a study happened called Parenting Matters. They highlighted 30 kinds of violence that happens with children from 0 to 12 years. 30 kinds. And some of the examples which I've been able to pull out for you. Um, and some of the obvious one we know. I'm not talking about the obvious, because in this discourse you must have heard about kind of violence, different types of violence. I am only talking about violence which affects a child um, mentally. Or so during pandemic, what had happened was that when children were at home, no socialization process. Only person they could see was a parent. And I'm telling you a story of a 5-year old, and narrated by her in her words along with her mother. So this was a story what happened in Noida, which is uh, NCR region for Delhi, um, where a mother, what we were doing? We were doing something like a telecalling to the areas where we work. So we were calling up parents. So this is part of Anganwadis. So we were calling them just to find out, how are you doing? And how is your child doing? Do you need anything? So provision of actual psychosocial care in terms of telecalling, and just to ensure the children are fine. When we started doing it, and so parents just said okay, initially it was fine. And this is then we asked that, what is your child doing during this time? Child, I mean, she just want to rush out. She doesn't want to stay at home. So I don't know how to manage, and I'm fed up. So at times I just slap her, get angry with her, scold her, and I'm getting irritated. Child is getting irritated. Then what we started doing was, we developed, after hearing this, we started sending short 3-minute kind of videos on phone to these parents. And we said, we don't want you to share the screen with children, because we don't want children to share screen to have screen time at that age. But what we would like you to do is repeat this activity with your child. And these were simple activities which we were talking about, because if anybody has worked in the just a minute if anybody has worked in the area of early childhood care and development, then probably you would know that the curriculum or the domain development rotates around language, maths, psychosocial care, motor, physical. So these are the few examples under which we work. So when we started sending those videos, and mother got excited, she started working with child on those videos. And then father got involved. So when we asked, how is your child doing, so the um, child said, I have two friends at home. So who are these friends? Mother and father. So I think if you are able to cater to the needs of children somehow or the other, in this in probably in this kind of situation, pandemic, then what happens is, um, you end up giving children friends who will uh, not be violent against their children. So I think this is just one of the example. It may work in certain situation, it may not work. But when we started, we doing it, it worked. So we did a pilot, and I'm talking about pilot phase only. That we did it in 6 states. So and we received the same response, similar response, that engaging a child, and these kind of so it's a 5-day curriculum which we talked about. And on the first day, we did the first day of the week, we talked about orienting parents on certain issues like role of father, or violence at home, domestic violence, um, creativity, critical thinking, uh, well being, um, care during pandemic. So all these kind of issues, and it has resulted into lot of parental engagement. And because of it, you I think we have not done it, we have not documented it, but I'm sure when the engagement enhances, there's reduction in any sort of deprivation, because it's all up here. That's how I see it. It's your mind, that it's your brain that sends different signals. So if you are able to help or support families and children during this, I think that there are high chances of reducing violence against children. um, Another aspect which I would like to highlight is kind of other kind of psychosocial care which we provided, and it has we are hoping once the school reopens it'll help in reduction of violence. What happens, I mean, I'll give you an example. I was visiting areas of border areas of Gujarat and Maharashtra, and what had what was happening is that you know there was there was school, proper school, and there was also education, different kind of education happening. So what happened was that other education that was happening was from up, I think it's from 7 to 9 a.m. in the morning, and school used to start at 10. Suddenly what had happened was that other education time period started getting extended slowly, and children were the regular school, so children started coming at 10:15, 10:20, and this is a story narrated by the teacher. They said we had two options. One, to scold children that why are they coming late, and second, uh, work with other teachers to say, okay, there's a timing, why don't you leave them at right time. uh, then the teacher said that we kept on extending the time, so finally what happened was school started running at 12. So um, and then we said no, we can't let children in after that. And imagine a situation when, and imagine, let's imagine ourselves, if we have to go to school and we are late thrice in a week. Slowly what we will start doing is, either we will start withdrawing from school, that okay, today I will not go to school, or we will hear something or the other right from the entrance till till we reach our class. You know, oh, you have come so late. Your fellow students will talk about it. So, oh, he or she is always late. Those kind of comments. What kind of you start stigmatizing a child, and that happens. I'm giving you these examples. That's how dropout happens from school over a period of time, when child is not able to reach school because of n number of reasons. Child may not have proper shoes, child may not have proper clothes, child may not have proper bag, child may not have proper tiffin box to carry, even if school gives midday meal. I have seen situations
And
in different parts of
uh,
India.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
It's time
you have
now.
5 minutes. Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
What I'm trying to tell you is, working on psychosocial care, and especially during current timings, being with children, whether they are on in a difficult circumstances or situation, or they are in regular situation, everyone is going through tremendous amount of stress. So some sort of psychosocial care for teachers, for caregivers, for children, I think that would be the mantra which I would leave everybody with, that do think about the ways and means to provide psychosocial care to children so that they don't remain in that situation which can hinder their development. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamal, for the wonderful session. Before I summarize, I request the participants to post their questions on the Zoom chat box, or you can unmute yourself after my short summary and then ask the question. To avoid two people speaking,
If they can unmute themselves, that would be nice.
yes, yes, yes. So if anybody would like to unmute themselves, you can use the raise your hand feature and we can unmute you. Or you can post it in the chat box and I will ask you the question on your behalf. I'll just do a quick summary of Kamal's session. So it was an eye opener to understand that the kind of violences that children face, and you cited the 2019 study called Parenting Matters, which lists 30 kinds of violence, and and considering that most of the violence happens in a non-verbal or in a verbal way, most of the times it's not physical violence. So we need to be able to understand that violence is not just physical, not just beating up somebody with a rod, but it also happens when you just mock a child or you twist their ears. And especially, Kamal spoke about how violence is the most prevalent amongst marginalized children, which includes migrant children, children especially living at the borders, and children of scheduled tribes. When she spoke about children at the border, one of the violence that is really important to note is the violence that they are not getting any education for the time that their schools are closed. And Kamal spoke about how schools are not open in conflict areas for more than 70 days. And we all know through the COVID-19 pandemic what effects occur on a child's mind, especially at their self perception, when they're not able to go to school, meet their friends, socialize, play. Um, and then, apart from that, what is really important to note is that there is no state structure for supporting children who face violence, especially sexual violence. And that is something that we as civil society need to come forward and think about what we could do. And that's also where Save the Children comes, and enables those children to access what they are missing out because of the structural inequities. Um, so with this, I wrap the summary. I had to keep it short because of the paucity in time, and I open the floor for questions. Please unmute yourself, or you can put them in the chat box. Okay. In the meantime, till we have someone asking a question, I have a few questions that I wanted to ask. First of all, I wanted to understand that when does a child become an adult? In society, unfortunately, especially in the context of a patriarchal and authoritarian society like India, we keep telling children that you are a child right now, just listen to your parent, or you don't know what's right for you. And then suddenly they expect that when you turn 18, you will know everything. So how do you kind of work with that mindset, especially in Indian society, where they want to treat children as children but not give them the rights that they have as children?
So, I think you raised a very, what should I say, very easy question. Because what happens is that um, Save the Children, when we are working with, so, as the name says, we work with children. It's a child rights based organization. And one of the aspect which we thought, and when we started, it's we are working in 120 countries. So we don't say it's an organization, we say it's a movement. So in our movement, when we started working on something called common ways of working, what we say in our term is common approaches. those common approaches are always divided into two aspects. When we work with children, what we do with children and what we do with parents, or what we do with caregivers. So, and caregivers would include your parents, your teachers, your Asha workers, your Anganwadi workers, your community. So we have programs oriented towards both from, simple thing, orienting school management committees on child rights. What they, it gives them an idea what do you expect out of a child. First you need to do your duties. So that's something. Talking to parents about child is child. There are domains. There is a uh, time of development. There are certain milestones, and don't go beyond those milestones. Certainly. So simple example. Uh, there are parents who come and report to Anganwadi workers that my child is 3 years old, can't even speak. My child is 3 year old, can't even write. So dumb and duffer. Whereas in private school, um, they teach children in terms of writing. So what we need to do is a lot of unlearning with parents, saying that there you don't have to stress that child should write at this age, and that shouldn't writing shouldn't happen up till 6 years. They can do the finger movement, but holding of pen or pencil shouldn't happen. Why? Because of your motor development. So there's something called what we a package which we say responsive caregiving at home. So we work with Anganwadi workers. We also work with parents. So responsive caregiving at home, where as part of different modules, we unfold what to expect from a child. So parental education. And if you look at new education policy, they have also emphasized what parents can do with the children at home. So I think, and we don't see so much of focus on this aspect in India, but Save the Children is definitely, as part of almost all the programs, focuses on that. So responsive caregiving, promoting that, could be an important, you know um, way of dealing with this situation.
All right. Thank you.
So
I
this is
believe,
preventive aspects, but otherwise, then violence happens, then what? But yes, educating parents is and the community is very important.
all right. Thank you. I believe Tabassum has a question for you. Tabassum, you can please go
Um,
ahead and ask your
yeah.
question.
Hi. Good afternoon. Now, I just got an opportunity to hear such wonderful things from you, because we get to know the real facts and figures when we hear such kind of forums and things. So now my question is, when a child faces a lot of violence, some kind of abuse, be it physical, mental, sexual, all these kind of things, what kind of a future generation are we creating when we let them experience all the the unruly things? So what kind of a future are we actually developing, and what would be the repercussions of this in later?
See, definitely, I mean, there are studies in the area of child development, health, uh, and social sciences, which talk about the impact that child has when any sort of violence or deprivation happens to the child. So it definitely has a reflection on their later life that we understand. I give a simple example, like uh, if a reflection is made on a child that, oh, you can't do maths, you can't run, you can't do this, uh, anyway, some sort of inferiority complex that develops. I mean, um, so these kind of challenges, and I also don't have an answer, because looking at the number of children and the schools which we have, I don't know whether We can't even handle a disability till now. So what about these psychosocial kind of a care, provisioning of that? So what Save the Children is doing, like for example in the state of Jharkhand, we are orienting teachers about the psychosocial care. Simple example I would give you. After almost 10 months of, if school opens, what would happen? A child, teacher, a typical teacher or typical parent. Oh, क्या हुआ आज? In Hindi, if I may speak. क्या हुआ आज स्कूल में? आपको क्या पढ़ाया गया था? I mean, first day you are asking, after 10 months, a child has gone back to his or her friends, and a typical parent will ask, what did you study? What happened in the school? Right? Nobody will ask, okay, were you wearing your mask properly? How did you enter the school? Did you clean your hands properly? Was there any wash station? When did you visit loo? How did you eat? Was there any midday meal? Questions won't be like that. Questions will be, what did you learn? And same thing with teachers. They will ask, okay, what did we leave? What was the last lesson we did? School will start just like a normal school, right? Same class periods, recess break, or midday meal break. So we are orienting teachers to that once children start coming back, how will you handle with them? More about the well-being of a child, maintaining hygiene, maintaining sanitation, sanitizing school, or there are certain do's and don'ts which you need to follow, ensuring that. So there's a lot of orientation which is happening with teachers and Anganwadi workers in Save the Children. So one of the aspects, but we can't guarantee, how we need to reinforce it again and again, and whether the system is geared up for that. And it is also high, what should I say, a post pandemic or during recovery phase or during when school reopens, whatever you call it, you need a lot of money, and it's not easy for government to spend. Yeah, it's a question of resources as well. So I don't know, I don't have an answer for that.
Thank you. I request Ms. Sheila to share her comments. Dr. Sheila.
Yeah. Mm. Hello, Dr. Kamal. Very happy to see hear your talk on this very, very important topic. It's very close to my heart, and it's my. Of course, it is teachers. I'm the head of Center for Women Studies in the University of Hyderabad. So my it's just a comment. It's just an observation from my own growing up in Bombay. I mean, we're talking about Jharkhand and all, but in a city like Bombay, where I was growing up, there's so much of peer group, even among the children themselves. If a child is abused, one child is an abused child, coming from home and doing different things because of the abuse, and the child gets even more and more isolated. So even in a city like Bombay, where I studied in not a very big school, it was a medium kind of a school, there was absolutely no awareness about. In fact, the child would get so isolated and so even more isolated instead of getting kind of support. And of course, teachers also sometimes they don't understand what is going on, but the child actually gets even more isolated from friends when they actually need that support the most. So we don't have that system in our country, and it's, as you said, it is a huge vast country, so it's difficult to cover every school and every area. Yeah, this was just my comment.
Thank you. Thank you. And situation remains the same. Situation hasn't changed. Even if you look at, you are in higher education setup, in your college also, when children will We are hoping situation will become normal soon, and when they will come back to university, you would have so much of pressure in terms of finishing course, organizing exams, you know, um, doing organizing. So now you have semester system. So semesters, putting marks to it, putting grades, deciding, um, and I don't think many of us will even have, even though we have intention of doing that, we may not have bandwidth to do that. We may not have time. We may not have luxury of time to provide support to our children. And I think situation is true for any setup in terms of education structure, and very sad. But yes, um, lot of awareness among parents, lot of awareness among even uh, teaching community would help. So something like, if one can think about peer education, or empowering our child to think differently. And I have, today I have not even touched about issues like child marriage, which is which is an expression of extreme violence. I talked about very subtle, softer areas of violence. I agree. We don't have provisioning, we don't have system to support that, but probably what we have is, which we can enhance, is peer support, so that can help. Just developing certain clubs for children so that they can uh, displace their energy and emotions. I think that will also help.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to our participants for their questions and comments. Unfortunately, we need to wrap up the session. I now request Kamal Gaur to share her concluding remarks.
So I think I would like to leave with a lot of hope that once situation becomes relatively normal, we, all of us, will be able to provide that psychosocial care and support to each other. I think we understand there are limited resources. We understand we have limited time. We understand we have limited energy. Um, we understand we have limited education. But just the you know, just being with each other, I think that uh, may be able to substitute the system with you know, with fair kind of emotions. So I would suggest and I would request that at this point of time, when things become normal, especially or otherwise, just being human will help. Okay, we don't expect each and everyone to become a mm, you know, person who can prevent violence, but doing things their own way, like educating, ensuring that children go to school. Because even though what we have heard is uh, maximum amount of violence happens in school, but still school is the safest place for a child. So ensuring that place remains safe. So I'm hoping, and I wish that soon all our children return safely to school and remain in a safe environment and learn to 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 for prevention of violence, as well as, if that happens, raise their voices and also cope with it rather than um, withdrawing themselves. Thank you so much, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights, Kamal. I realize I've not introduced myself. I am Niketa and I'm pursuing an MA in Gender Studies at University of Hyderabad. So when you said that online education is difficult, it absolutely is, and peer support and professor support and this the administration support is extremely crucial for someone as privileged as me. So I can only imagine how much it is needed for somebody who's marginalized or a child coming from a marginalized family. Thank you so much. It was, it was a pleasure to moderate the session, and thank you, HRF, for the opportunity. I now request Sarvanan from HRF to conclude the session.
Yeah, thank you, Nikita. First of all, on behalf of HRF, I'd like to thank Kamal Gaur ma'am for wonderful speech and telling the grateful words for today's session. For moderator from University of Hyderabad for moderating this session very well. I'd like to thank all the partners over here. Hope this session will be and informative to all. And of course, I have to say you to all the guests and to our team. Before I close the session, I just would like to have a few points to share with all of you. The first one, session is being uploaded on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel name is Human Rights Advocacy and Research Foundation. So if any of your friends or colleagues want to watch the sessions, you can refer our link. Kindly look through the chat box. We'll post the message in chat box. I think it's posted. Yeah, it's posted. And announcement is for tomorrow's session. So we have 5 more sessions for tomorrow. The second session. Today we 4 to 5, but the timing is 8 to 5:30 p.m. So the topic of homogenization. Yes, the session is homogenization. Am I audible? Hello?
You were not audible up till now for a bit. Now it's better.
Yes, can you hear me?
There's a lot of disturbance behind, so it's a little difficult to hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry for network issues. Yeah, tomorrow the topic of the session is homogenization, and our keynote speaker will be Dr. Albertina Almeida and Santosh Giri. So tomorrow the session will be co-organized by Meta School of Social Work, Banyan Academy of Leadership in Mental Health, and the Tata Institute of Social Science and Bharat University, Trichy. So once again, on behalf of HRF, I thank you all. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.